What are some things rich kids won't understand growing up? That when you turn 16 you don't get a car. You just get to be 16. Is having a car this important? In Europe we can't drive alone until turning 18, and even then, getting a car isn't automatic a ritual. Places in the US are a lot more spread out and there isn't as much or as good public transportation. This means in order to pretty much do anything one has to either walk a long distance or drive. That Santa doesn't visit some kids. The worst was after the break, when the teachers at school would go around the room and ask what everyone got for Christmas. Having to lie about getting a gift always stung a bit. Yet same here. Or when it's your birthday and everyone asks you what you received for your birthday, and you'd have to make it up. If I break this, my family cannot just afford to buy me another one. That graduating from high school going to university is a really big deal for some people. My parents arrived in the United States from Mexico in the early 90s. They were determined to let me and my siblings have opportunities that they were not afforded in their tiny towns. Although we are better off than we were when I was young, we are still considered poor. Me and 3 of my siblings graduated high school and we are each attending universities. It is a huge deal when not many of our extended family has been to an university. Moving past all the usual material stuff, one thing that sucked for me growing up was that I couldn't just up and go places when invited, even if it was free or their parents covered the cost of the activity. My mother was always broke, and though we had a car, gas was reserved for the work commute only. I couldn't just get a ride from my mom, and she never had spare change for the bus. Every dollar was accounted for. I got a lot of come to the movies with us. And don't worry, I'll pay for you, just be across the city by 5:30. It sucked having to explain yet again that no money meant no money for anything. Even a ride. Edit. Jesus Christ. You guys. I didn't expect this. You're all amazing. Trying to respond to everyone's messages. Thanks for all the kind words. Trying to cook and serve dinner loud enough to cover up the sound of your mom crying in her bedroom because she can't afford to pay the electricity this month. Putting on a cheerful face and acting super chipper for your younger siblings as you pack your bags to stay at a roach-infested motel because no electricity will get you all taken away by CPS. Walking 5 miles round trip to buy dollar store groceries on your food stamps because your mom can't afford a car or the bus. Walking 7 miles round trip to see the Medicaid doctor after being without your medication for 3 months because that's how long it takes to get an appointment. Having to pack everything you've ever owned into 2 bags. Trying to decide what portions of your life can go in the garbage can because your landlord died and your family got evicted. No. Mark, I can't spend a semester in Europe. Well, if you were paying European tuition it would be easy. Having your parents borrow money you saved up to pay the bills. That living paycheck to paycheck is an actual thing. Late payments and having cell phone, electricity, water cut off. Visiting cash advanced stores with your parents. Having Metro PCS. The amount of unsupervised alone time spent growing up. Both my parents worked all day and couldn't afford summer camp or anything like that. In the summers I would just hang out in the house alone or with the other neighborhood kids while the parents were at work. Having no money for Christmas trees, fireworks, Halloween costumes to celebrate holidays. How awesome it is to buy a cheap Honda that'll run forever. Some people think they need to change cars every 5 years or something. Drives me insane. Co-workers bugged me non-stop on when I was going to finally get rid of my 93 Camry for a new car. Geez. I don't know. How about when it finally breaks down or the repairs outweigh the cost of keeping it? Being outcasted in an activity because you can't afford it. Field trips, movies, etc. The shame involved in not being able to participate in those activities. Or knowing that your parents scraped up literally every last penny they had so you could go on a field trip. I remember in 2nd grade my mom gave me a coin purse full of all of her change to pay for the trip. The teacher made fun of me in front of the class for handing her so much change. Duck her. Mom moved heaven and earth to make that happen. When I was young and super poor, my rich friends would get mad at me for not having the money to do things with them. From their perspective, I was just ditching them all the time. More recently, my who comes from a wealthy family, and I have been making common law official and moving towards being married, and he totally freaked out about the fact that I have student loans. Apparently he didn't realize that a kid who grew up below the poverty line wouldn't have school paid for them in full. In other words, rich kids don't seem to get that money can be scarce. How I've had this phone for coming up for 5 years. Good old iPhone 4. Why don't you upgrade? Yeah, because I just can. 12 years for me. I just have no desire to have a smartphone. Someday I'll buy one. But my flip phone is still doing exactly what I wanted to. It's weird also dealing with these people in your early 20s. Where broke to them means only getting the cheap beer at the bar or only ordering takeout once or twice a week. Or, no. I can't just call my parents for money when I'm stretching things pretty thin. It's mind-blowingly frustrating at times. This is what bothers me the most about my rich friends. They say they are broke and even cancel plans with us because they have no money. However, every day you see them buying useless shit. It's fine if you can't afford to eat out with us. However, don't show me your 11th phone case you bought for your S8 the day after, man. Rich kids can never understand the pain, humiliation, helplessness and sadness of seeing your mom walk in the door with a box of food that you know she had to beg the food bank to let her have. Thinking about this now makes me upset still. But when I was a kid, it was a fact of life that I was too young to embrace the burden of. Times like that made me grow up way too fast. While other kids might have just complained and itched about frivolous it. Seeing my mother go through that really left me feeling upset and helpless. The feeling of being able to afford your first pair of nice sneakers that you wanted for like a year. Appreciating great meals and nice clothes. But I can't say for sure since I don't know how rich kids feel about these things. Maybe they experience similar feelings. Going to grandma's house just because. And realizing that it's because there's no food at your house and grandma wants to make sure you've eaten dinner. Buying their own school clothes. I'm mid-20s and still wearing clothing I had in middle school. I just can't bring myself to spend money on clothes. Socks and underwear are about the only things I replace annually. Sometimes I'll buy a t-shirt at a special event. I went to school with rich kids. They didn't get it when I said my parents wouldn't allow me to do something or that I didn't have money. My family is planning our first abroad trip next year. It'll be the first time anyone in my family has been out of the country, and we're staying at a family friend's family's house. I knew kids that regularly take summer vacations for 2 months, stopping everywhere between London and Fiji. It's funny how these kids think it's strange that I'm so excited for a week vacation a year and a half in advance. Okay, so I guess this is only in America only. But getting a serious injury and trying to make it look like no big deal so you avoid people asking stuff like how long did your doctor say it would take to heal? Because you don't have insurance and the smallest medical expense would put your family in debt. So you never got it checked out. Seriously. I've broken my foot and not even gotten crutches. Could barely walk, but I had to tough it out and look like nothing was wrong. You can tell how rich or poor someone is by how easily they spend $20. Rich kids spend $20 like the middle class would spend 5-10. And like how the poor would spend 1-5. Also, if it is hard to justify buying a movie ticket. Even when out with friends who you would surely be letting down if you refused. Pretending you're not even hungry and that's why you're not eating lunch. My cousin grew up rich, I grew up poor to lower middle class, and good God does he a little shit. For Christmas I would ask for something. And if I didn't get it, I knew it was probably because my parents couldn't afford it and I'd just try to enjoy what I did get. I've seen my cousin throw a fit because what he asked for wasn't in the first few gifts he opened. He also once threw a fit because he didn't get enough presents. And told his uncles he was going to close his eyes. And when he opened them he wanted more presents. His family just laughed. If I had done that, every gift I got would have gone back to the store. He took it for granted that when they went to the store he'd get a toy. I knew not to even ask for a toy unless we were in the dollar store. He would constantly tell us our house and cars were richer than the house and cars his parents had. He asked why my parents couldn't just get good jobs and buy better stuff. On a family vacation, he and his older brother asked to fly to their summer home in Virginia because they didn't want to go on the long car ride. So their parents bought them plane tickets. On one occasion he wasn't being itty, just genuinely confused. It was a really hot day during the summer and he was at our house. He asked why we didn't have the AC on and we explained running the AC was expensive. So we only turned it on when it got into the upper 90s. He couldn't understand why we didn't just pay the bill. That they have some opportunities based on their parents' wealth and not always on their hard work. How being poor drains you of motivation and self-respect and makes opportunities harder to take. How eating sheet food and living in a sheet place makes you feel like sheet and how hard it can be to break out of that. People who have always been rich have never felt that. So they assume that being poor is just the same as being rich without having money. And that if they were ever poor they would just work their way out of it while remaining chipper. But it's not that easy. Having no money is insidious and it affects your whole outlook and personality. On a more positive note, how once you get some money you have an iron determination to never be poor again. Which can make you work harder and better than the rich kids. Being poor can also give you respect for the value of money. And stops you wasting it. Also, when I was poor I was somehow closer to the people who I lived around. We were poor together and we partied together in squats with out of date cider.